Upload. All right. And we are recording. Okay. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's Coffee and Code. We are joined tonight by Bob. Bob is actually my husband, and he is a cybersecurity professional. He has a master's in cybersecurity, and I know this because I helped him through it.
Yes, you did.
I did. I did a lot of proofreading. But tonight.
But now who's the proofreader?
Oh, I see how it is. Yeah. I see how it is. Yes, that is true. So tonight, Bob's going to talk to us about cybersecurity basics and why it needs to be important to you. Just a reminder that tonight's Coffee and Code is recorded. And if you have any questions or comments, please throw it into the chat window. And hopefully, Bob, if you've got the chat window open, that way, if you see any questions that anybody has as you go along, you can answer them.
Okay, it's open.
Okay, cool. All right, Bob, take it away.
Okay, can I just go ahead and start sharing right now?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to start sharing. Tell me if you see something. That doesn't look right. What do you see?
I see your name. I still see Bob.
How about now?
Nope.
How about now?
And you're good.
Okay, you can see the what is cybersecurity with the little fingers, right?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right, like Carly said, I'm Bob. I am a retired Army guy. I did 20 years, 3 months and 2 weeks of active duty. After I retired, I went to school with the post 9/11 GI Bill, which is probably the best thing that's really is a great benefit for military service members and their spouses. It really helped me out to go all the way and complete my master's degree. Of course, I couldn't have done it without Carly and it's her support and taking the kids out on those Sundays when I had to write all those papers. Not only did I go to school, but I worked in the Army as a comm guy for many years, and so I'd always been around technology, and it just kind of seemed like the thing to do at the time. Throughout these years, I got a lot of experience and, worked in a lot of different places and just been able to take all those experiences and apply it. And now I work as a project manager at a company up here in Central New York, Assured Information Security, and I'm a project manager supervising, software developers. Not a coder myself, but if I could give anybody one piece of advice along the way, whether you're doing cybersecurity or you're doing software development, you have to cross the lines in each, because every day I see where those lines kind of blur between software development and networking, I should say. A lot of the kids that are coming out of college these days that get hired, they come in with some really good development skills and a good analytic understanding of software, kernel processes and things like that. Of course, there are languages and the language that they specialize in, but they lack the basic networking terminology and fundamentals. And the same with the guys that pursue and graduate with a cybersecurity degree, and then they don't have at least one language that they can actually code in comfortably. So both those are very, very important to have that overlap. So as you go through this, whatever your track is, whatever track you have chosen, make sure that you at least get some basic networking. And if you are on a cybersecurity networking IT type track, pick a language and get comfortable enough to develop in that language. Okay, so now let's talk about what is cybersecurity and why you should care. So cybersecurity, whoa, did not know I had these transitions, but that is good to know. So cybersecurity is, it didn't start out as cybersecurity. Yeah, if you Google the term cybersecurity, you're going to see who first coined this phrase back in this time frame in the 80s and the 70s, cyberpunks and all this stuff. But cybersecurity, in my experience, started out as what we call information security, right? It used to be just information security But then as time went on and things became more connected to the internet, it became cybersecurity. And now cybersecurity is kind of like this huge umbrella that encompasses a lot of things. But basically what cybersecurity is just protecting, like it says here, I know you all can read, protecting your cyber assets and critical data, right? That's just the first sentence. And then at the last sentence says its purpose is to defend those assets against all threat actors throughout the entire life cycle of a cyber attack. Well, that's great, and that's all true. If there was something that was missing with this definition, I would say that its purpose is to defend those assets against all threat actors, whether those are actual threat actors like malicious hackers or human error or a natural disaster, because all of those are threats to our cybersecurity. All of those things can impact the state of our data, right? And so we'll kind of go into that. I talk really fast. I do have my chat window open, but when I go into presentation mode, I won't see it. So somebody just let me know if there's a question, and I'll escape out of presentation mode because I have my notes on the PowerPoint.
Not a problem. I'll get you.
Okay, good. All right, so let's go into the pillars of cybersecurity. Now, you're going to see this if you continue down this path. Cybersecurity, this is called the pillars of cybersecurity, sometimes referred to as the fundamentals of cybersecurity or the cybersecurity principles, something along those lines, meaning just the the backbone of cybersecurity, if you will, right? It's commonly, we refer to this in cybersecurity as the CIA triad, right? We're seeing a push for this to be the AIC triad because, it gets confusion with the, Central Intelligence Agency. But however you're comfortable using these three letters, they all stand for the same thing: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. If you think of these three things as like a triangle and each one of these is on a leg, if you take out one of those legs, then you are impacting cybersecurity. You are impacting somebody's ability or data by taking out one of those legs. So let's look at each one of these individually, and you'll see how this plays into cybersecurity, and not just cybersecurity, but in all aspects from the ground up, right? Most of the times that we talk about software development and making products and things like that, the focus is to get these products out as fast as we can, to get it to market so we can make money, right? Money drives everything, unfortunately, right? But the problem is when we take that approach and we get these things out to market and we get them into production, security is an afterthought, and that's what we see today, right? So as you go through this and you think about the CIA triad, we got to start thinking that we have to bake security in at the beginning and not so much as an afterthought. And that's a big controversial topic that you could go on over and over again, and we can get into DevOps and things like that. But confidentiality, integrity, and availability are the basis of cybersecurity, and we have to take those things from the beginning of anything that we develop. So let's look at confidentiality, right? So here, basically what confidentiality is I'm sure you've all heard this term, and it's exactly what you think it means. It's just keeping a secret, right? You are confident that the information is not disclosed to somebody who shouldn't hear it, right? So I have the, the medical personnel picture right here, and you can think of like the HIPAA laws, Health Insurance Privacy Portability Act, that we are not allowed to give information to people who are not authorized to have that information, right? And then some ways that we go about confidentiality is we implement encryption, and encryption applies to two states of data, right? There's data at rest and data in transit. Actually, data exists in three states: data at transit, data at rest, and data in use. Now, it's very hard to take any protections against data use, and what data in use is you're actually manipulating or making changes to the data. So a simplistic view of that would be if, like, I'm typing up a Word document and I'm just typing away at it, and that data actually is in use. It's not resting. And resting, what we mean is that it's currently not active and it resides on a hard drive, an external drive, a thumb drive. It's just sitting there. And data in transit is actually data that is in motion, if you will, moving from point A to point B. So confidentiality in this aspect with data at rest and data at transit, the way that we implement that is we encrypt data when it's at rest, and in transit with like HTTPS, SSL, TLS, that type of thing. That will help us ensure confidentiality, and that prying eyes trying to view this information are not able to do so with any kind of, without at least wasting a lot of time and a lot of effort to try and break that encryption. Now, also with confidentiality, we have to control access physically and technically, right? Encryption would be technical, but like if you think about controlling access physically, locks, securing the doors, multiple rooms to go through, defense in depth, if you will. Many of these type of things that we have to implement physically. A guard, a man trap is a door. Then you go into another door, and then you get authenticated, and then you go through. So we have to think about confidentiality in the technical and the physical aspect with encryption, at data at rest, and in transit. Right? Any questions about that so far? Let me know, Carly, because I can't see, and then I can escape out of this if there's one.
We're good right now.
Okay, good. All right, so now we're going to move on to the second one, which we call integrity, right? Integrity is probably my favorite leg of the CIA triad, and I'll just say CIA because that's the way I've always learned it. But integrity is basically assuring that the data has not been modified in transit or while it has rested. And I'm going to show a little exercise here at the end of this, how you can verify this type of data in certain places, certain things that you pull from the internet, how you can verify that when you pull a file off the internet, when you pull an exe, an executable, there are ways that you can say, hey, this same file that was on that server that I pulled from their site, I know it hasn't been modified or altered because I ran this type of tool and I matched certain numbers, and you'll see that here in a second. But integrity basically means is the assurance that data has not been modified at rest or in transit, right? So the way that we implement that is like HTTPS, SSL, TLS, change control, controlling access, who has access to the data. We use secure hashing functions, and I'll show you that. And, build, like it says right here, secure coding and software, building that in from the beginning to protect our integrity of data from being modified or altered before we want it to be. And you can see the slide that I have here, validating data, input validation, I'm sure you guys have heard, is a big thing. Being able to put data in or not being able to input data against a certain field. And if not, there's countermeasures to protect that. And then you can see all these: removing duplicate data, access controls, validation, data backups, and things like that. So that's integrity. And then availability. So availability, you can think of availability. Think about when your internet goes down and you really need to log in, or maybe you have to pay a bill, or maybe you have to submit a paper for school. And when that internet goes down at any time, think of the frustrations that we all have, that we all experience when the internet goes down. So availability if somebody was to attack the availability, if somebody's to take out, your cable company by cutting the fiber or something like that, disrupting the availability is definitely something that's can be considered a serious attack, because now you're stopping progress, right? So how do we overcome and ensure that we have availability? It obviously is redundancy. We have to have recovery, and it's got to be fast, right? That's the thing these days, is when something goes down, the recovery option should be so fast that it's transparent to any user. You don't even know half the time, right? That's what you want. You don't want the users to know. So attacking availability is a pretty serious thing. So that's why it is also one of the pillars of cybersecurity, right? So is there any questions at the moment? No? Okay, good. I'll just keep flying along here. Okay, so why do security breaches occur, right? I mean, well, there's some terms here at the bottom, and I have a slide that's going to talk about this. So vulnerabilities, right? Threats, risk, exposure, and countermeasures. These are terms that we throw around all the time in cybersecurity, and it's not necessarily just cybersecurity. Companies at the senior executive level use these terms as far as building what we call a business continuity plan. Like, okay, if our company goes down, how long can we afford to be down without losing money? How much data can we feasibly lose and be okay? What backups and countermeasures do we have in place so that we are not losing money, revenue, customers, our reputation, that type of thing? So a vulnerability basically is just a weakness in the system, right? It allows a threat to compromise security, right? You can think of a vulnerability as, how about a weak password, right? If you have a weak password, then you are vulnerable to be hacked, right? It's a weakness. If you have if your password is not strong, then it is definitely a weakness. Now, I could do a whole segment on passwords and things like that, but it's safe to say that these days we have to have massive password complexity, probably nothing short of at least 22 to 25 characters, I would say, today on anything. And you have to have, separate passwords for every single login. I know I've done it for years myself, and I still do this type of thing, but I know where that I think I can get away with it. And I know I'm kind of like contradicting myself a little bit here, but there's places where I'm like, okay, this is a machine that's not on any network. I can put this password in there because I just need it's quick and easy, and I need to get it right. It doesn't connect to an internet. It doesn't, no one else uses that machine. So you have to weigh those factors, right? So a threat, is a potential threat, right? A threat's a potential danger, like it says here, to exploit that vulnerability. Is something that will take advantage of that weakness, right? So when we talk about threats, the threat that most people in this industry talk about these days, the buzzword is the insider threat, because the insider threat is the greatest threat. And the reason why an insider threat, as you can probably infer, is that an insider is already vetted, right? An insider already has placement and access, as we say. Nobody questions the insider. Now, people are going to question outsiders because you're not in the norm. But if you look at, cases like, Snowden and all these, Manning and all these people who had placement and access, they're, the things that they caused were on such great scale because they had the placement and the access, and they were on the inside and they were vetted. So a threat is something that's going to cause, danger and they exploit the vulnerability. That vulnerability was obviously a weak security system where people did not actually go and check people, you know, more than they should have, right? So risk, likelihood that a threat will exploit a vulnerability. So a risk is, let's say risk is not locking your doors at night, right? Well, if you don't lock your doors at night, then there is a risk that somebody could break in, right? So how do you protect against that? Is we employ a countermeasure by locking our doors. Now, countermeasures are also can be weak. So instead of maybe locking my door with a deadbolt, putting a little chain on or whatever, maybe I just say, well, I'll just put a piece of Scotch tape across the crease of the door here, right? That's a countermeasure, but it's very weak, right? As opposed to a deadbolt or, you know, having a guard dog or whatever. So just because you have a countermeasure, it's got to be an appropriate countermeasure and not so much just anything. So exposure, you know, the vulnerability creates the exposure, or what we call an attack surface. So if you go through and you say, well, let's just take, in my house, let's just say my attack surface, I have a lot of exposure because I have weak passwords. I don't lock my door. I don't have a dog. And, you know, the windows are open, right? They're never locked, right? The keys to the car are outside in the driveway, whatever. There is, my attack surface creates a lot of exposure for vulnerabilities that can be exploited, right? That's what all that means, right? So is there any questions about this part so far? No? Yes?
We
Maybe?
haven't had any, but I know when you went back and talked about passwords, the first thing that jumped to mind, because you've had me working on this for years, reminded me, Carla, your password is too weak. LastPass.
Yes.
I would talk about that.
Okay, I can talk a little bit about password managers, right? Now, I started using LastPass probably in 2011, before I really knew anything about those. And a particular company I worked with back then said, hey, we should all start using some password managers. And here's 3. You know, if you're not familiar with a password manager and what password managers are, let's talk briefly about that because I won't go too long. But a password manager allows you basically to create one really strong, massive password. And that's the only password you have to remember that will get you into numerous sites. But for each one of those sites, it is a password that is very unique that basically you don't have to remember, and you can create a password anywhere from, 10 to 100 characters. Most of the passwords that I have these days are probably in the, 50 to 100 character range, but there's no way I could remember that. And so that's what a password manager does for you. It says, hey, if you have a master password, you can create all these other passwords for these sites, and they're unique. Now, there's lots of drawbacks and there's lots of pros to this, but I'm trying not to get into that at the moment. But having complexity in your passwords is, it's a must today, because there is no password that cannot be hacked, right? Because if you think about it, all you need to do to hack any passwords is you've just got to have time and the computing power and the motivation, right? That's all you need. And you're thinking, well, how is that possible? Well, it's because everything I need is sitting right in front of me. I have a keyboard. So I know that everything to crack this password, whether it's, 5 characters or 100, is on this keyboard, right? Basically, right? I know it's going to be A through Z. It can be, capital, lowercase, numbers, symbols, special characters. That's all there is, right? Now, granted, if I have someone has a 50 or 60 character password with lots of complexities, the time that it would take to crack some of these passwords is, years, 20, 30, some of them probably even 100 years to crack those passwords. But you take computing power that people have these massive machines with, massive amounts of processing power, RAM and hard drive space. You take those years and they have these machines running around the clock. You're going to take 10 years now and maybe break it down into maybe a year, right? And if I'm a nefarious hacker, I don't have anything but time. I just let my programs run and then, check them every now and then. It's like growing plants. I come back and I was like, nope, nobody got hacked today. I guess I'll come back tomorrow and check, right? I mean, that's what it is today. So that is why it's important to reset your passwords at regular intervals. A lot of people don't like that because you get used to it. But the way that some of these programs work, whether it's brute forcing or, whatever the technique is, you're going to get close. They're going to be like, oh, man, okay, bam, bam, got a character. And then you reset it in 90 days, and then they start all over. So that's what passwords do. That's why it's important to reset them at regular intervals, is because you reset the count of the adversary who's trying to break that password. And using a password manager will help you create these complexities, right? Whether it's an online password manager or a client-side password manager, they all do the same thing, and there's pros and cons to each.
Would you consider two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication a countermeasure?
Yes, that is, we call that, like you said, MFA or 2FA, right? Two-factor authentication, multi-factor authentication, because the reason, like, I've got two-factor on probably the majority of the things that I have. There's only one or two things that I don't, and I should, but they're just things I don't care about, which is stupid, right? I mean, you should care about everything, but what two-factor or multi-factor authentication does for you is, say you log into your email and they send you a code, and then you put the code into the little box to get into your email, right? So multi-factor authentication basically depends on three things: something you are, something you have, and something you know, right? So you have to have at least two of those three things to be multi-factor. So a password and a login basically is one thing, right? Because I know those things. And then you send me a code. Now that's something I have, right? Something I am. I should have said that's what it is. Something I am is the other factor, is like a biometric, right? So keeping with the email two-factor authentication, I log in, I get sent a code. I have this code because I have the code and I know my login and password. So that's two of the three. The reason why, two-factor is important to have these days is because if somebody tries to breach your account and they put in let's say they do get your password, because there's ways it could be done. When they log into your account, you're going to receive that notification and go, I'm not trying to log into my account. So it's definitely a countermeasure to have. So if you have any accounts that that offer two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication, then it's definitely a good countermeasure to implement. Anything else? No. Okay. So I just pulled together some, things, just some quick little stats off cybercrime. If anybody wants this, I just, you can see as the sources RSA, Rivest, Shivelman, and Edelman, the guys that invented a very complex encryption algorithm. If those of you that are like any kind of, maybe you're a contractor and you have to do your time cards and you wear the little RSA token around your neck, or you have it in your pocket, that's two-factor authentication. You go to sign into your company portal, and then you have this little thing, and it changes the numbers every minute. So you log in with your username and password, and then you look at your code on your little token and you put that that code on the token, that's two-factor authentication. So that's ensuring who you are, right? So I'm gonna take another quick little side channel here. So by entering your username and your password on the site, you're proving you are giving your identity, right? But you also have to authenticate. So you can authenticate with a password. Let me try and put this into like normal terms. So identification and authentication, like what is the difference, right? Identity is like if I see you and I'm like, hey, what's your name? Hey, my name is Bob. Okay, prove it, right? Authentication is proof of identification. So how do I prove who I am, right? Well, I show you my driver's license or my birth certificate. When you see those documents, I've authenticated. There is no argument. And so that is how, you prove your identity. And I don't even know why I was even going to talk about that. I just saw something on the screen that made me think about identification and authentication. But identification is saying who you are. Authentication is proof of your identity. And proving your identity with authentication and two-factor authentication is further validity of who you say you are. So most cyber criminals, it says here, aren't stealing data and leaking those secrets for the sake of justice, right? They're not just doing it to be whistleblowers or anything like that, even though I have a slide about that. They're getting this information and they're selling it. If you've ever been on the dark web, it's just so easy to just go out there and look around. You can say, hey, how many PayPal accounts are for sale? Look at the drugs, weapons. It's easy to find it on the dark web, right? And if you're not familiar with the dark web or the deep web, those terms are slightly different. But the dark web is the part of the internet that's not indexed. So you can't search for it. You have to know where it is, right? So, and there's ways to figure out where that is once you're on the dark web. But looking at these crimes, so like I said, it sells it on the dark web, 500 billion, Microsoft estimates the total potential cost of cybercrime to the global community in 2016, right? And if you can go through and read these, billion, trillion, cybercrime is huge, and we're not doing enough, in my opinion, in the U.S. to combat cybercrime and make cybersecurity one of the most important thing that we really need to address. If you look at other countries, like say over in Europe, they have all these regulations in place, what we call the GDPR, General Data Protection Rights or whatever, GDPR, you can Google it. And they are all about protecting the privacy and the data of their citizens. And if you're not compliant with the rules that they put in place for protecting citizens' data, then you are fined, right? And so we kind of need to go that route, I believe, because for the country that has invented the internet, we are the suckiest at security of securing our data, which is just pretty sad, right? So this little picture here is basically the same thing as you saw before. The one thing I wanted to show is this very first little graphic here where it says the median number of days an attacker resides within a network before detection. Every single breach that has come about, whether it's Target, OPM, Equifax, Home Depot, whatever, any of these major attacks, and they found out about it after somebody has resided on that network, right? By the time you find out that you have been breached, it's like 90 days. It's already too late. So there's really only two types of companies. I heard someone say that's like those that have been hacked and those that know about it, right? That's it. There is no middle ground. You're either hacked or you know about it, right? And everyone is going to get hacked, right? It's not if, it's just a matter of when. So you have to keep resetting the counter of when you're going to get hacked, right? It is unfortunate, I mean, that, people are residing on these networks. There's got to be, better countermeasures for us to detect these breaches. But, criminals, cyber criminals, we all use the same tools, right? It's funny if you think about the way that we go and we call them pen testers or penetration testers, or network vulnerability people that go and find these vulnerabilities and map out a company's attack surface. We use the same tools, right? It's like, I use this analogy with, I do some adjunct work at a local college here, and I use the analogy, right? Whether you're a gun activist or not, right? The gun is not, you can use it for good or you can use it for bad. It's the same thing with cyber tools. The cyber tool is the gun. You can use it for good or you can use it for bad. You can use these tools to expose these vulnerabilities and have these companies and individuals patch, update, and secure their networks. Or you can use these same tools to take advantage of those vulnerabilities because they're not doing those things, right? So unfortunately, by the time you discover that there's a breach, it's too late. And now you're in reactive mode. So the key is to continually be proactive, right? And it's not easy. It's definitely not easy. So if we put this all together, these things I've talked about here, cybersecurity, protecting all our assets, physical or technical, natural or man-made, right? Our pillars of cybersecurity is the CIA triad or AIC, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And they protect against DAD, right? Disclosure, alteration, and disruption. So the opposite of the AIC triad is DAD, disclosure, alteration, and disruption, right? If confidentiality is broken, it's disclosed. If your integrity is broken, it's been altered, right? If your availability is not there when you need it, then it has been disrupted, right? And then of course these other terms that we talked about: vulnerabilities, threats, risk, and exposure, and countermeasures, right? Now, what I'm going to do now is just a couple of little demos, right? Does anybody have any questions before I get into these little quick demos here?
Doesn't look like it. If anybody has anything what they want to say, and during this time, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and jump in and ask a question.
Yeah. Ask me some questions here.
Oh, we have somebody else joining us too.
Okay.
All right. So demo away.
Okay. So let me get out of this thing. I'm going to move this over here, right? So what I'm going to demo, right? Whoa, don't move that thing. Move this thing, right? And so I talked about, confidentiality and integrity, encryption. So I'm going to do a couple of things to show basically how to do some simple encryption and an integrity demo, right? Oh, wait. I was supposed to show this. I have one more slide here. Was this one, right? So protecting data at rest and checking the integrity. That is the demo, right? So let's just take that back over there. Now everybody saw my last name. Yes, you guys know who I am. But anyway, so I'm going to talk about a couple of tools here, right? So let's go here to this guy right here. Okay, so Veracrypt basically is an open source encryption tool. Now you can encrypt files with it. You can encrypt folders.
Sorry to jump in. Are you supposed to have that on screen?
Can you not see it?
No, right now we only see your presentation. So check the share button and click to make sure you're sharing the right screen.
Hold on. I'm gonna unshare and then I'm gonna reshare. Oh, I see. Okay, there we go. Now you got this, right?
There we go.
Okay. All right, good. Thank you. Okay, so Veracrypt, what Veracrypt is a application that allows you to encrypt files, right? So with encryption, what we're doing is we're taking something that we call plain text and turning it into ciphertext, turning something that's readable into something that's not readable with the human eyes encrypting it with a particular key, and nobody can know what that means unless they have that same key or a different key, which is a whole nother talk. But so I'm going to do a little simple encryption demo here, right? So Veracrypt, but before I do this encryption demo, let me show the integrity demo. I should follow my notes, right? Okay, so Veracrypt, like I told you what it does, but when you go to download this platform, right? I don't know if any of you guys have ever been somewhere and you've downloaded something and you go to the downloads folder, and sometimes they'll have these numbers, right? If you go to it and you'll be like, and it says, hey, here's a bunch of numbers. I don't know if you've ever seen that out to the side of the file or something, and you're just like, what is this crazy freaking alphanumeric string of characters, right? What does that mean, right? Well, those numbers are verifying the integrity, right? They want to let you know that the file that's on their server, and if you download it, it hasn't been altered, right? Because if these numbers, if the file gets altered, the numbers will change. And if the numbers have changed and the number is different from what they say it is and that you download it, then if those numbers don't match 100%, then you know it's not good. You should not proceed to install this application on your machine. So what some vendors do is they're like, okay, I've made a really cool product for you. Here's my hash. They call it a hash or a message digest, right? It's just a string of numbers, and there's several of them. They'll put it up there for you, like, hey, when we created this file, this was the hash, this was the message digest, this was the fingerprint, right? They call it a digital fingerprint. This is the fingerprint of this file. So when you download that file and you use whatever software, which I'll show you here in a second, that's mostly free and open source, and you verify that number, you can rest assured when those numbers match, they're like, okay, the file that they uploaded to that server is the same exact file that I pulled from the server. So now I have that comfort knowing that no one has messed with it and tried to install any kind of malicious software on top of this platform that I'm downloading. So let's just play a little game here, right? In order to verify this, right, it's kind of funny because it's one of these catch-22s. You have to have some kind of a software or an application to verify those numbers. What's funny is when you go to download the software that gives you the ability to verify those numbers, the first time, how do you know? Because you don't have any way to verify. So it's kind of just like blind faith. So basically what you do is you go off the reputation of other people and some of the sites that you go on, other security practitioners that say, yes, I downloaded this from there, it's okay, right? Of course, there's other ways to check it too. But let's just say, okay, so I'm going to download this file here, right? And let's just say I downloaded it and it's in a demo folder, right? And I bring my demo folder over there. There is that file. That is not it. Hash calc exe. Stand by while I just look at it. Okay.
We see a strange view.
Oh, crap. Veracrypt hotfix. Okay. Anyway, so if I download this, which I thought I already did, all right, let me just download it while I talk real fast. Watch this, right? So I'm going to download this, right? That's not my download, is it? Download Windows. I want to download, where is I'm going to download this portable version. So I'm going to download this, right? And when it asks me to download it, Veracrypt hotfix 2.0, going to put this on my desktop in my demo folder, right? Save that there. Okay, so I downloaded the hotfix, right? The Veracrypt, or the portable hotfix, right? If I move this over, you guys, can you still see my screen? Or does it just keep following that window?
We only see the Veracrypt screen with the downloads.
That's pretty sad. Okay, all right, so
You should be able to like click and share. You'd be able to choose.
I know. Now I have to escape out of that. Okay, so you see the Veracrypt. I grab the portable version, right? Then I say, okay, I want to make sure that I got what they say is the file, right? So if I go here and I say, okay, the portable, here's the portable, right? That's the number that I should see. All right, let me go down here. I want to pull open this notepad. Can you guys see that notepad?
Nope.
You don't see the notepad that's on the main screen.
Nope.
Okay.
We only see your browser window.
Oh my goodness, that's so sad. Why does it do that? Hold on. Now do you see the notepad?
No.
Now do you see the notepad?
There. Yeah, now I see the notepad.
Okay. But you don't, it's just funny, it's because the notepad is sitting right on top of the browser, but you don't see the notepad on top of the browser.
No, I see it now.
Okay.
I didn't see it before. It was weird.
Okay. So all I did was grab this number, copied it and pasted it and put it in the notepad, right? So that came back from when I downloaded this file, right? Stay with me. I know it's getting a little crazy, right? So that number, whoops, portable, sorry, cancel, don't get out of control here. Portable, oh God, go here, this one. The portable should have that number. And then what I did was I copied that number, and now I want to make sure. So what I do is, right, is I have this other little application here. And if you want to get this, it's called che.exe. Check exe shortcut. Download it from majorgeeks.com. All right. That's a safe, reputable site to get some open source software from. So I click this, right, and it opens up this huge window that I really don't want it to open like that, but it did. There we go. Okay, so now there's that number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate to the file that I just downloaded from Veracrypt, right? And there it is, the portable hotfix, because that's what I downloaded. I open it up, right? And then as you see, it says, oh, the SHA-256 hash. Now that's the keys. You got to know which one, because there's a lot of them, right? See all these? There's a lot of those, but I know that that's the one. It said it was a SHA-256, so I can just copy that hash, go underneath it here in Notepad, and then paste it right underneath. And you can see that they match. Yet don't get wrapped up around the axle about the upper and lowercase. I mean, if you want it to match, you can just, if you want them to look the same, you can just put it like in Word document and make them all upper or lowercase. They're the same, right? As long as they are the same letter, whether it's uppercase or lowercase, then it matches. And so the top one was from the site. The bottom one is what I downloaded, and I ran it through my checker, right? My hash checker, and they matched. Every single one matched. If it didn't match, I would just say, you know what? I would go back to where that was downloaded, and I would just delete it and download another one until they matched, right? Because that way I know that the integrity is intact, right? But let me show you how this, let's clear this guy out. Refresh this guy. Let's get rid of this guy. Don't save that, right? Did I not just refresh you or get rid of that? There. Okay. So move this off to the side now. Can you guys still see my CHK?
Yes.
Okay. So here's CHK. All right. Now in my demo folder, all right, let's move this up here. In my demo folder, I have this test document. Well, you know what? Let's do the super duper top secret text document, right? It's so secret, right, that it can't be altered, and you need to know that if I sent this to you, you have to know that it hasn't been altered, right? That the integrity is intact. So if I open it up, it says this is super secret document, it's G14 classified, right? So what I'm going to do, that's what it said, right? And I take this super secret, super duper top secret, and I drop it in here, and I calculate my SHA-256 sum, right? So I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to open another one of these guys, I put it here. This is the number I send you. I say, hey, I just emailed you this super duper top secret text document, and this is the hash value. It's a SHA-256 sum. However I get it to you, I encrypt it or whatever the means is. When you receive it, you know that if you download this super secret document, and it doesn't have this file, then you know somebody has altered it along the way. So, right, that's it. That's the number. Now, watch this, okay? This is the original, right, on top. I'm going to go here. Going to clear that, right? Going to open my super secret document, right? That's not my super secret document, is it? Did I accidentally get rid of my super secret document? That's pretty embarrassing, but
you may have.
But it doesn't matter. You know why? Because all I gotta do is this, and then I will just take this guy. There's my test document, but pretend it's super secret. All right. I copy that. I put that here. I paste that. There it is. Right now, I know why. Because the minute I do here, make a copy of that guy right there, or just move that there. So if I remove that guy, I should be able just to clear it there. That's all you got to do is hit the delete button. Move this guy back over here, right? Now, that's my hash. I've done nothing to the document. Here's my test document, and it says this is a test. Watch what happens when I go in here and I just put a space right there, a space between the period. I save it. I close it. I throw it back into my hash thing. I grab the hash again. I copy it, put it underneath. Totally different, right? Look, it's not even close. And all I did was put a space at the period, right? So what I'm saying is, if you have a way to verify any file that you download from the internet, and if they offer the hash value, definitely take advantage and make sure that that is the file that they're giving you. And there's many sites that do that. You know, they may not make it like painfully obvious, you know, like with I'm trying to pull my little guy back up here with Firefox, or with Firefox with Veracrypt, right? You know, I had to look for it. Oh, okay, checksums are here. Check it out, right? Okay, there it is. A lot of sites, especially if it's some kind of I don't want to say hacking software, but if it's some kind of security-like tool, they're going to give you that so that you can verify that that's a tool. Okay, so let me go on to this last part of this demo because I know I got like 5 minutes, right? Okay, so that didn't match. So I'm going to be like, okay, you know what? That's so bogus. I don't need this guy. I'll go back tomorrow and see if I can actually get the real thing, all right? Okay, so let's say that those hash values, you guys just see a blank desktop now?
Yes, yeah.
With these little three guys up here? Okay, good.
Yeah.
So let's say that my hash values match, and they did, and I got Veracrypt, and hashes match, it hasn't been altered, so I go and install it, next, right? That's what we do. Yep, default, awesome, it's installed, right? And it puts this cute little icon right here on my desk, right? So now I verified the integrity of that application. Now let's encrypt some data and have it encrypted resting, right? So now I open up the application and it opens over here, right? And it opens up like this, right? What I have to do is I have to create a volume. And so it gives you all of these, you know, choices of a drive letter. I don't know. I usually pick a drive letter that we usually don't use very much. You know, you got A, B, C, D, possibly, I don't know, E's or whatever, but you know, maybe X. No one really has an X drive. Maybe you do. It might be a share at your work or something, but let's just go with X for now, right? So I select my X drive, I create a volume, it opens up this guy, it says, hey, create an encrypted file container. Yes, I would love to do that. Standard encryption, yes, right? Then it says, okay, never save history, select a file. What's funny about this is it says select a file, But what it wants you to do is create a file. So you say, hey, demo.txt, that's what I'm going to call it. I save it, right? So there it is, demo.txt. I say next. I want to apply the, whatever encryption algorithm. Today, the default's AES 256. And you can see it right there. I'm going to leave it on that default, right? Hashing algorithm for verification of my integrity, SHA-512. I just demonstrated that, but I demonstrated with a 256. 512, just a little bit stronger, right? Okay, and now how big do I want to make this encrypted drive? Basically, I'm creating a box, and I'm going to put a bunch of stuff in this box, and I'm going to encrypt it, right? So how big do you want the box to be? Well, for time, I'm just going to make it 1 meg, right? I don't want it to be like so big it's going to take forever to encrypt, right? Now I put a password on it. Okay, so I have a password. I say next. And it's telling me that I'm using a weak password. Yes, I am, for demonstration purposes, because I'm not going to use this encrypted container. I'm going to delete it when I'm done, right? So I say yes. Now, as you see, as I move my mouse around, it says randomness collected from mouse movement. So the more random I move this mouse, the stronger this encryption is going to be, because we're creating what we call entropy. Entropy means randomness. The stronger the randomness, the stronger the encryption. Yay. And you can go for as long as you want. Usually, go to the end. Once it turns green, you're good. And then you hit format, right? And now it's going to create my container. Okay, successfully created. Okay, exit. Now, let me pull up one of these guys, right? Wow, that is huge. All right, let's take this guy here, right? I'm going to go to close this guy, this PC. So on my PC, you can see here, I've got C, D, E, and F drives, right? I have all these drives, right? But I created an encrypted container with the drive letter X, but you don't see it, right? So I want to use it. I want to put files in my encrypted container. How do I access that encrypted container? I say X. You can pick whatever letter you want now after you create it. I say mount the volume, find it. All right, what do you mean? There you go. Select the file. Sorry, you got to select the file first. Demo. So that's that one I created, that file, right? And then it shows up here, and then you say mount. Now it asks you for that password. This is going to be pretty cool here in just a second. Hang on, right? And then, wait for it. It's decrypting over here on this side of my screen here. Okay, it's going to take a second. And then it says, look, it shows up, blah, 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 demo text. And if you come over here, there's a drive called an X drive. Now, if I open that X drive, let me open my demo folder over here. Right, watch this. I'm going to take this file I have here. I drop it into that X drive. Oh, it might be too big. Yeah, okay, never mind. Let's just do the demo text. Put the demo stuff. It's not enough. Okay, I will make a really super small file. I should have a small. Here's one. What does this guy say? There we go. All right, let's take that file and put it in there. There. Okay. So I have a really small file in a really small container, right? It's in that X drive, right? It's in this. It shows up like a normal drive on your computer. Close all this out. I close all this out. I had that file in there, right? And it says test, and then I dismount it. Now, I open my File Explorer back up, and you see that I don't have that X drive anymore. So the key to that is that I always have this file right here. As long as I have that file and I try to open it normally, this is what it's going to look like. Well, it takes a second because it's like, this is not something I recognize. It's trying to open on my other screen, and I can't really bring it over, but it's just sitting there spinning like what are you trying to do, right? Because, and when it finally opens, this is what it looks like, right? Just some gibberish here. Maybe you guys can read gibberish. I don't know. But anyway, so you can see what's going on here. Like, I could name this file whatever I wanted that doesn't look anything like a demo text. That's not anything anyone would want to look at, and if they did, they would get that gibberish. But just to show you that the test file, or that other file that I put inside of there, I will go back over to my X drive. I will select that file again, right? This guy, open it up, mount it, put my password in, let it decrypt, watch it pop up here, and should pop up over here, right? And there it is. Shows up like a normal drive again, and I click on it, and there's my file, right? So I've successfully, created this container where I can put secret files in. And what is that good for? What is the practical application of that? Well, maybe you want to store your tax documents, or you want to store, your kids' copies of their birth certificate, or registration forms for school, or anything that has any, what we call PII, personally identifiable information. So it might be a good idea to put those documents that you consider sensitive into an encrypted container and maintain that file here, this little guy, maintain it somewhere other than this machine that you're doing this on. So maybe you want to put it on a thumb drive and lock it into a safe, or burn it to a disk or something. Make a backup of it so that you will have that availability when you need it, right? So that is basically encryption and verifying data integrity at rest. And then, of course, in transit, we use TLS and SSL. And so now I'm done putting all my super secret documents in there, and then I dismount that. It's gone. I close that out, and that is all I got. What do you guys have?
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, I know John said he may have some questions, but
okay.
Anyone, please feel free to unmute yourself and just ask away.
Okay, I got the chat box back open so I can see.
I don't have any questions.
Okay, all right.
You cut out there for a second, John.
I think he said he didn't have any questions, is what it sounded like.
Yeah, I don't have any questions.
Okay.
Anyone else? No? Okay. Well, if you don't have any questions now and you come up with something later, you can go ahead and message me on the Facebook page, and I can, of course, get you that information. I know Bob has a lot of other different things that he can show us, especially when it comes to like social media and how much information is available, more than you think. So that might be another presentation that we could do another time. But again, thank you, Bob, for helping us understand the basics of cybersecurity and encryption, because that container thing is cool. I might put that on my computer here.
Yes, you should.
I know you'd say that. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We appreciate you stopping in. And again, this whole presentation has been recorded. Yes, and thank you, Bob. Again, thank you from Jen, and thank you from Michelle. This presentation is recorded, and if anybody wants to watch it again, or if anybody knows anybody who would like to see it, we will have it posted on our Facebook page. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.